Graveyard shift workers often survive the dead hours by relying on a baseline routine. This is a mental defense mechanism, a predictable loop of repetitive actions used to anchor the mind against the weight of severe isolation. For a worker named Maud, the parameters were narrow. He worked the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift at a 24-hour Denny's near Dodrey, a brightly lit island in a vast, dark interstate. Within this vacuum, a specific anomaly appeared. Every night at 2:30 a.m., a man in a gray hoodie would sit in the same window booth, occupying the corner with the cracked vinyl. The order never changed: black coffee, 2 sugars, and a slice of cherry pie. He always paid in cash. Adherence to a mundane routine creates a psychological blind spot. By repeating the same safe, boring interactions night after night, the brain stops analyzing them for threats, leaving the worker vulnerable when those repetitions are weaponized. This particular loop was anchored by a recurring $20 bill that Maud began to recognize. The bill carried 3 unmistakable markers: the serial number L47839221B, a small tear in the upper right corner, and a faint coffee stain on Lincoln's beard. Maud initially rationalized the repetition. He assumed the customer was simply eccentric or had a strange habit of recycling his own currency, a logical attempt to fit an anomaly into a safe, explainable box. When an object this specific repeats perfectly in a chaotic environment, it stops acting as currency. It becomes a tracking mechanism used to monitor the presence and attention of the person receiving it. The deviation from the routine occurred at 2:42 a.m. The customer performed the same actions as always, eating slowly and sliding the same bill across the table when he finished. But under the register light, Maud saw a new variable. Faint pencil writing had been added to the back of the bill. The message used his name and identified his exact schedule. Maud, shift ends at 7. Don't leave early tonight. The injection of private, personalized data into an anonymous public loop shatters the illusion of safety. The customer had moved from a passive observer to an active monitor, signaling the start of a direct threat. Seeking clarity, Maud checked the digital record, rewinding the security camera feed to the moment the bill was handed over. He found an impossible contradiction. On the screen, the bill was completely blank. In his hand, the physical paper still held the fresh graphite of the handwritten note. This conflict breaks a victim's reliance on objective truth. When physical evidence provides data that the digital record denies, the logic to defend oneself fails, leaving the victim isolated from their senses. Without a reliable way to verify reality, the victim becomes defenseless against the perpetrator's next move. Maud tried to break the stalker's algorithm by introducing a sudden evasion variable. He called his manager and left his shift early at 4:30 a.m. The system adapted immediately. The next day, the booth was empty, but the $20 bill was waiting for him on the table, face down. A new message on the back proved the stalker had predicted the evasion. "You left early, I waited." It was followed by a direct command to return that night and bring the bill. Maud quit the job instantly, but the boundary was already breached. At 2:42 a.m., he received a text from an unknown number, a photo of the bill sitting in the diner booth, with the word, "waiting." The threat had moved from a physical location to a digital network. By tracking his phone, the stalker proved that the algorithm was no longer localized to the diner. It was now attached to Maud himself. The geographic progression of the threat reached its final stage at 3:17 a.m. Mohad heard a knock, but the hallway visible through his peephole was empty. On his doormat lay the $20 bill. The stalker had used the initial harmless diner routine as a bridge to reach Mohad's front door. The apartment, the final sanctuary, was breached using the same physical object that had been passed across a diner counter weeks prior. This represents the successful mapping of a victim's movements. The perpetrator utilized the predictable nature of the graveyard shift to identify, follow, and finally locate the subject in their home. This pattern demonstrates the quiet hijacking of a trusted ecosystem. The danger lies in the manipulation of everyday items, like currency, and familiar places to erode a person's sense of security. If you work the graveyard shift and see the same bill twice, check the serial number. If you see the tear and the stain, keep the bill face down. True horror is found in the realization that the rules you use to navigate your world have been rewritten by an unseen architect without your permission.